Are you ready for a show that talks sports from the fans' point of view?
We've seen Michael Jordan score 37 points a game in his era. How many could he score in today's NBA?
There's not a player out there who I'd rather have than LeBron James.
Are you ready for a show that isn't afraid to challenge anyone when it comes to sports? If Adam Silver really wanted to fix tanking in the NBA, he would stop rewarding teams by giving them the best chance to win the draft lottery.
I mean, how many times will Roger Goodell drop the ball on handling domestic violence in the NFL?
Look, athletes have every right to talk politics, but if the fans stop tuning in, that's their right.
Then you're ready for Talk Back, a podcast where two fans debate the media narrative and discuss the world of sports as we see it.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to another edition of Talk Back. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Nesbit, and with me is Justin Gay, your host and director of content. We're a little bit delayed this week, and I got to tell you, Justin and I have been talking back and forth all week about the NBA trade deadline. We knew that there was no way that we could put out this podcast Thursday morning at 10 a.m. So just like we've done with the past few weeks with the NFL playoffs going on, we just knew that the news and the headlines were going to break at a time that didn't make sense for our normal schedule. So here we are recording after the Thursday trade deadline in the NBA. Yes, the Super Bowl did happen last weekend, and we want to recap that for you. But we're going to throw that to segment 2 of this week's show because, Justin, I know you've got a lot lined up for segment 1. Plenty of talk-worthy and hot topics coming out of the NBA, some of them even involving my boy LeBron James. And even I'm not too happy with everything that LeBron's got going on right now. So we're going to have NBA in segment 1, the Super Bowl, NFL in segment 2. We'll wrap it all up, put a nice bow on it. That'll be episode 236 of Talk Back this week. We appreciate you listening right after this.
We are back, and we have a busy show this week. Normally, coming off the Super Bowl, you'd think that this would be the time that, hey, we'd be talking about the recap of the Super Bowl game. But because of how the game went down and just the way that the NBA has set itself up with this trade deadline, all these moves, all these big names on expiring contracts, all the big teams seemingly making a splash, trying to gain guys, other teams trying to dump cap, get picks. Eric, there's so much news in the NBA. I feel like we really need to kick the show off there because I feel like a lot of our listeners are probably getting inundated with all this NBA news and trying to make heads or tails of what some of this means. So let's start with what didn't happen at the trade deadline, and that was your boy LeBron James. He didn't get Anthony Davis on the Lakers. Anthony Davis is still a Pelican. Looks like the Pelicans are going to go ahead and turn Anthony Davis loose and play him for the rest of the year. There was some talk they might shut him down. I know last week on the show, Eric, we had discussed about how the Pelicans could maneuver this deal if they could get leverage by waiting. Did Anthony Davis just want to go to the Lakers? Right after the show, it came out that maybe he is more open to signing with a team like the Bucks or the Clippers or the Knicks. Knicks don't really seem to have anything, and the Clippers are trading all their pieces away. So I really don't know what we learned about Anthony Davis or where he's going other than the fact that his dad certainly doesn't seem to want him in Boston, but it feels like Boston is loading up to make the run at AD this summer. So what are you making here of this whole AD saga when it comes to Clutch, the Lakers, and everybody else involved?
Well, a lot of things are going to need to be said about this, and there's a lot of different angles that we can take. But just from having a conversation about this throughout the week and sort of the things that we saw happening, whether it be from the Pelicans side or whether it be from the Lakers side, there were things I didn't like about this. And there were things that I can understand why certain people or teams would be frustrated about how this went. So let's back it up a little bit, kind of give a little bit of perspective. We talked last week about the fact that it's probably not a good thing in the NBA that players that are 1.5, 2 years, not that close to the end of their contract are dictating where they want to play. To me, that's a dangerous thing. Anthony Davis got fined $50,000. Maybe tampering, maybe not. We don't know. We know that Clutch is involved. We know that LeBron may or may not be involved, at least behind the scenes. So all of those things we thought were a bad thing for the league. And you don't want to see that continue. Now there's talk from New York with the Porzingis deal. How much does Kevin Durant really know about all that? Seems to be that he's a little bit frustrated in the press. So a lot of things in the NBA going on behind the scenes.
Slightly.
Yeah, he's slightly upset, right? Then after he gets that fine, he comes out and says, well, maybe I'd play for the Knicks or the Clippers or the Bucks. He kind of put 3 or 4 other teams on the table as well as the Lakers. I'm not so sure how genuine that was, because I think he got a slap on the wrist, and now he's kind of trying to do maybe the right thing, gain a little bit of leverage. The problem is, I think that bought the Pelicans a little bit of time. The Lakers pretty much offered everybody on their team up to and including, I think, Magic Johnson and Julius Erving. It seemed like they would say, we'll play the rest of the season with only LeBron James, JaVale McGee, and Anthony Davis on the court, like 5-on-3 the rest of the year, as long as we can get Anthony Davis. Absolutely horrible. We'll talk about that in a minute for sure. But the deal doesn't get done. Now the Lakers have to go to the summer and, like you said, start battling the Celtics and more than likely other teams as well. Possibly the Knicks, although I think there might be something behind the scenes going on there in New York. Somebody seems to know something. What a mess. I just didn't think this played out very well for the league, and I don't think it really plays out all that well for the Pelicans long term. One of the things I wanted to ask you, especially on the heels of our conversation last week, is had the Pelicans made a deal prior to the trade deadline in one of 2 ways, and I know we texted back and forth about the word tampering, what really defines tampering? In my mind, if LeBron James had gotten Magic Johnson to offer all of the pieces in their last deal, to me, that's tampering, because I thought that was way, way overvalued for getting one player in return. It would be like in fantasy football. If I, sent you an email that said, I'll offer you these 5 players if you give me Aaron Rodgers, you'd be like, okay, sure. At some point, there's just no balance there. On the flip side of that coin, if the Pelicans had taken a much lower deal of value from another team in return for Anthony Davis, just so that they could block the Lakers from getting him, to me, that's also a form of tampering, because then you're not doing what's right by the valuation of your assets, because you're basically saying, okay, we'll take less than market value for Anthony Davis just so that the Lakers don't get him. To me, that's a fine line of tampering as well. So some of those things started to be considered, and I felt like the Pelicans ultimately did the right thing by waiting.
Well, first of all, on the trade that the Lakers offered, and I think the reverse of that can be true too, because you've had guys so we'll talk about our listeners, because everybody seems to play fantasy football. You'll have one guy that'll offer you 3 or 4 names for one guy, but it doesn't make your team better. They're positions that you already have, or they're guys that just don't do anything for you. I saw someone on Twitter put a great thing. If you have a really nice car, if you have a Maserati or an Aston Martin, and someone offers you 4 Hyundai Sonatas for them, you're like, okay, well, you get 4 cars. Okay, well, is it the same? Okay, I'll give you 6. Well, 6 still isn't as nice as maybe the one that I'm giving up. I think that's where the Pelicans were. What are we getting? You're giving us these guys. You're just handing over anyone on your roster. So how good are they if you're just willing to kick them out of town and kick them all out of town for one guy? What really is their value? What really is their upside? And now we're going to have to put up with them. Basically, the Pelicans had Julius Randle. They were going to become the 2018 Lakers that won 35 games. So that means that they're sort of stuck in the back half of the lottery where they're not going to be able to obtain any talent. They're going to be having to figure out what to do with all these young guys. They're going to be it's just going to slow their rebuild down. So I think that's part of it that played in there of like, well, how really good is Kyle Kuzma? Yeah, he gets 20 points a game on 25 shots. And what are we going to do with Brandon Ingram? He's a ball-dominant forward that can't fit in with the Lakers. What are we going to do with him here when we already have Drew Holiday to handle the ball and Alfred Payton?
Weren't there rumors last year, though, that the Spurs were interested in guys like Kuzma and Hart for Kawhi? And the Lakers were like, no, heck no, we're not doing that.
Well, last year, it seemed like Kuzma had more value. Okay. And it did seem like that the trade had to start with Kuzma. and the Lakers shut it down, or basically the Spurs wanted multiple young stars, and they were going to drive the price up because Popovich didn't want to deal with the Lakers. And reportedly, now Stephen A. Smith came out and then he sort of debunked his own report that Popovich called Dale Demps from the Pelicans and said, don't deal with the Lakers. And there's actually been other reports that other GMs around the league had said, don't deal with the Lakers. Now, is that tampering? Is it not? I think at this point, there's a power struggle. There's a power struggle between the players and between Clutch in particular. And remember, the Pelicans are a different franchise. This is a team that basically the Benson family bought down in New Orleans, and they're a football-only ownership group. This is new to them to get a phone call from your star. I mean, can you imagine Drew Brees with 18 months left on his contract in the middle of the year saying, hey, you know what? I want to be traded. I'm tired of here. Trade me to someone where I can go win another title before that doesn't happen in the NFL. So I think some of that caught the team off guard, that they were like, why do we have to trade this guy now? Well, because he wants to be traded. He's still under contract. Similar with Kyrie Irving 2 years ago with the Cavs when we talked about it. Like, I want to be traded and I want to go here. You got 2 years left on your deal. They don't have to do anything for you. So the whole thing, it just seems like a mess.
And even though it hurts my boy LeBron, I'm actually going to side with you there and say, I'm glad the Pelicans did nothing, because I'd rather have them do nothing than take on 6 Lakers players or 2 Bucks players or whatever in unbalanced deals just to give the player what they want, because I think that kicks the problem down the road. Don't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if they would have probably been better off to trade him somewhere, some hell place where they couldn't win, trade him to an Atlanta or someone for 2 years and just to make a point. I mean, basically that's similar to what Popovich did to Kawhi. He shipped him to Canada. So he did not give him what he wanted. He didn't give in. They didn't care where their list of teams were. They just took the best deal they felt for that team. And remember, when you start to look at, okay, this deal may not have as much value as this deal, what's that team trying to accomplish? What are the Pelicans really looking to do? Are they looking to keep their cap low? Are they trying to take on expiring deals? Are they trying to acquire picks? Everybody's sort of got a different MO right now in the league. The Clippers, for example, they were an 8th seed. All of a sudden now they've gotten rid of basically all of their talent, trying to create cap room for next year, because they know this year, okay, so what? They're an 8th seed. They're going to go get blasted by the Warriors in the first round. They're not going to get a lottery pick, and they would have losing assets and getting nothing for them coming up. So they're in a different position than other teams. So when teams say, well, I didn't get as much value here, or this deal seemed like it was better, we don't know what those teams are looking at. And I think that's where you talked about what the Lakers did. And basically the Lakers offered everybody except LeBron and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who, by the way, is a Clutch guy, but he's also on an expiring deal that they probably want to keep next year to have that room to go sign another big name. So there's some things that play there. But then, Eric, it came out that maybe there was like a reverse tampering situation going on here, where the Pelicans had no intention of trading AD to the Lakers. They just wanted to cause dissension on the team. And by the looks of things at Indy, they certainly accomplished that.
Oh, yeah, I 100% agree with that, because, you know, I know what you're saying is true. Okay, you're giving maybe a pile of players to the Pelicans, and even though it's all 4 starters other than LeBron, because Kuzma, Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, they've all played starting roles for the Lakers. It's not like they're all bench guys.
Well, it was too cold. It was too cold in New Orleans for Lonzo. He wanted to go somewhere warmer, so I don't think they were going to get him. And they got
How
LeVar.
Can they get any colder than 41% from the line for Lonzo Ball, a point guard shooting 41% from the line? It don't get much colder than that.
Tweet LeVar and ask him if he taught Lonzo how to shoot free throws.
I'll tweet LeVar and ask him to shut up. How about that? But look, here's the thing. The Lakers, they offered all their starters other than LeBron James and some picks. And I thought that was way too much. But the Pelicans, maybe you're right. They were like, hey, let's show the league what these desperate Lakers are willing to do. And Justin, I got to tell you, I didn't like the look of it. I didn't like it at all. You sent me a tweet the other day. It had a list of 6 things or something like that were kind of bad in LeBron James's week this past week. I agreed with 3 of them. Thought 3 of them maybe could be negotiable, but didn't look good. 3 of them, though, you're right. I hated the fact that they were willing to offer the whole team, because what message does that send? Now that the Pelicans have done nothing with that, you go to Indy, you get blown out by 40 plus points. LeBron is sitting on the end of the bench, which the media is making a big deal about that, but he's done that at other times in his career. It's just it's stories for stories, right?
Well, at least he didn't break his hand this time.